I'm Allison, and this is Dream Anyway, a podcast for those of us who feel the pull to create, even when the path isn't clear. So wherever you are in your journey, grab a coffee, get comfy, and dream anyway.
Hi, my name is Maeve Griffith.
And what do you do?
I do all sorts of things, but I don't do anything for money anymore because I'm retired. I retired from the Spokane Fire Department in 2020. Yeah, and since then I've been doing a lot of art, a lot of acting, and a lot of writing and political activism.
We need you.
Oh, thanks.
What have you been acting in?
When I left the fire department, I think it was the year 2018, a couple of years before I left, I was in the vagina monologues. And it was funny because my wife had said, I'm going to audition for this. And she said, are you kidding me? I go, no, I did a lot of acting when I was a kid. And so I got a part in that.
Can you explain why that's funny?
Oh, yeah, because I'm a trans woman. Yeah, I should say that. I'm a trans woman. That's something I always kind of forget about. But I went down, I auditioned, I got the part. And then after that, I wound up being on the board of Stage Left Theater. And I was on there for, I think, 4 or 5 years. But COVID hit. And so we had to do a lot of kind of like guerrilla theater type stuff, like of busting into places and filming things and stuff like that. And then I was asked to do a play called I Am My Own Wife. And it was a Pulitzer Prize winning play. And it was based on the true story of a trans woman in Berlin who had survived basically the Nazis and the East Germans, all while being out and being trans. And so it was her story, and it has a lot of twists and turns. I had to play 35 different parts, I think, in it.
Oh, wow. After
I did that, it sort of punched my card as far as other directors and other theater companies saying, oh, well, this Maeve person can act. So then after that, I did a lot of local Shakespeare stuff. The last thing I was in was my friend Pam Kingsley, who's a playwright who has written plays for all across the country, prize-winning things. She had written this play called Boxes, and I was in the original version of it when it was over Zoom. It was just only one act, but she expanded the play this year. Did that. That was the last thing I was in April, because as you get older, memorizing lines gets a lot tougher. It was a lot of work for me, and I haven't done anything since then. And then my wife got cancer, and so that's been something that we've been kind of has taken us out of a lot of things lately, but that's okay. I don't mind I still go downstairs and I still paint, I still write, things like that. So.
Never have been in a play and never will be. But when I go to plays, which I do often, I like to go at the end because I feel like they've got their stuff down. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I love catching them at the end, especially if you hit the last show, because that's the point where you're like, I am not going to leave anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to just drop it all on the floor right here. And yeah, I'm with you in that.
And I feel like maybe it's a little emotional too, because it's the last one.
Yeah. Oh, the emotions run so high. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially during that last week. And that is the hard thing when you do play too, is that you've created this little community. And that was a big thing for me too, because out of the fire department, I was a captain of the fire station in the West Central neighborhood. And so I had, all these crews and my crew and, all the other people I work with in the fire department. And so I had a real community. And when I left, it was kind of at the height of COVID. And I was so grateful that I had this acting community. It was a real lifesaver to have that. And then also, I've been asked to do a radio show down at KYRS. And so, and I thought I was just going to spin records, but they said, no, we want you to do a talk radio show, a weekly show. And so have met so many people through interviewing people. And then, of course, all the people who also work at the radio station, that was a good community too. So I've got like these two good, and sometimes the artists, when we have like a big, like Art on the Bluff or something where there's a bunch of artists, we reconnect and things like that. That's good too. And then this summer, I went to a writer's workshop at our friends own a goat farm called Sasquatch, and it's up in Rice. And it's such a cool place. They have really big name people come in and teach, and they have like a dormitory there,
cool.
and a large industrial kitchen and tables. And they did a writer's workshop with some big name Spokane writers. So it was good. And there were people from all over the country that I got to write with, and that was really a lot of fun. So I find these communities that I'm able to make these connections with, because given my own thing, I would just probably be by myself painting or writing. I'm kind of a shy person in reality, but I, have learned how to be extroverted, I guess. And so to have that opportunity is really important to me. And I know it's important. It's not my natural thing, not my natural way I would go, but I make myself do it. And that's after I retired. I said, I'm going to say yes to anything anybody asks me to do.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 65 years old, and I retired when I was 60. I started working for the fire department when I was 40. So I put 20 years in at the fire department. But before that, I was working as a writer for an ad agency, which is not here anymore, White Runkle Associates. But before I was a writer for them, I was freelancing for them because I was working at Gonzaga. I wound up being the director of campus ministry there. It was such a low paying job that I needed to really have a second job. And that was just writing copy for White Runkle. I wrote a lot of radio and television and print stuff for them. So I got a degree in pastoral ministry with an emphasis in spiritual direction, master's degree. But before that, I flew for the Air Force. I was a navigator and radar navigator, the bombardier, basically, on B-52s. And so that was before that. And then before that, I worked at Denny's when I was going through college and into high school and college. I basically worked my way through college and paid for flying lessons and all that stuff by cooking at Denny's for 6 years. And it was such a great job. I still have dreams about it.
Oh, you do?
I love cooking for people. I still do, and I love the timing of cooking too, because you'd have an order with, 12 people on it, and somebody would have an order of, ham and eggs, and somebody else have a well done steak. And so, you'd have like all these diverse things, and they all had to come up at the same time. Well, I was a dishwasher there first, but that was actually such a good way to learn like attention to detail and to work for other people, as a teenager. Was really vital, I felt like.
Well, I don't know your story, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I'm wondering when you transitioned and if you were welcomed into the communities that you were already in, like the fire department and stuff like that. I don't know when you transitioned.
Sure. So I transitioned 2017, and I came.
So you were at the fire department.
I was, yeah. And I wound up coming out, and my story was I told my wife, probably about 20 something years before that. But I said, this is something about me that was something as a kid. I knew there was something wrong in all this, but I don't think I will ever act on it. That's not something I need to do, is to do anything. And and during that time, there really wasn't much. I think the word transgender was actually kind of a new word, even back in, the 1990s. I felt like I really wasn't going to do anything. But, we talked about it more and more, and it kind of became like this thing between the two of us that we had shared this secret about me, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I did tell a couple of friends about it, and then kept growing and growing and growing. And then she told me one day, I want you to tell our kids about you because I don't want to have to tell them after you're dead. And I said, well, that's fair. And so I told my kids, and they were fine with it. But, also with the I'm not going to do anything about this. But then I felt really good about telling somebody. And I'm I guess everybody would say they're a truthful person, even people who aren't truthful. So it doesn't really mean much for me to say that. But it really bothers me when I can't tell the truth. And really, back then you could, if you wanted to have a job, if you wanted to have any of this stuff, you were not free to tell the truth.
Right.
So after I told my kids, I started going to counseling. I felt really good, started taking little baby steps, HRT, things like that. And then eventually got surgery. But before I got surgeries, and I had been on hormone replacement therapy, I think for about 7 months, I had to come out to the fire department. And by then I was a captain of Station 3 in the West Central neighborhood. And I wanted to do it right. So I wrote a letter I coordinated with the union, coordinated with administration, of course, the city legal department, all that. And one day in April, I decided I was going to tell everybody. So I had told some people in the fire department before that, because as the story goes, if you want to get the word out, you can telephone, telegraph, or tell a firefighter.
Oh.
Because we would meet every morning. You know, it's shift change, 24-hour shift.
Mm-hmm.
So in the morning, you sit around the table and you talk. The oncoming shift and the outgoing shift talk. And sometimes guys will stay after work for a couple hours, hang out, you know. So I knew I took each person from my station to my office and talked to them about what was going on and let them know. And I knew that, well, this is not going to be a secret for long. And then I had told some other people who weren't at my station that were friends about what was happening, which I think I had a real reputation of being a prankster. So I think some people thought it was a prank. Even years later, they thought it was a prank. And I would say, well, I've always been about the long game. So we had a coming out party at 9 Bar, and I had the letter composed. I hit send. Actually, I had my wife hit send on the phone, went to all the stations. I had some of my closer friends there for the party. And then the chief followed up with a letter, more from like a legalese perspective, which it was great. He had to do it, but it was like nobody was going to give me any grief.
Yeah.
And then I started getting messages and letters and emails from people at work telling me how much they love me.
Aw.
You know, and these are firefighters who it's like usually, you know, if there's any blood in the water, that's like they're sharks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really prepared to fight, and I never minded fighting, but I didn't have to. I was really kind of disarmed by the love and the support, and even people who were really very conservative in their politics. At the time, it was safe to be okay with a trans person. I don't know if that would be the case today. Back then it was. And so they were very supportive. And it helped that I had a really good reputation as a firefighter and as an officer too.
Yeah.
So those things helped me. And then there's also a support group on Facebook of just tons of trans firefighters. Yeah, from North America and England and Australia, really all the English speaking places. There's tons of trans firefighters. The Air Force community was also really supportive too. You know, so there was a reunion and I saw my old buddies and everybody was cool. And and everybody was fine with it. And everybody was super cool. I think I lost more friends due to elections. I unfriended some of them because it was really hard to remember them, or I wanted to remember them how they were. It was like having, you know, in the movie, somebody gets bit by a zombie and they're like, you know, it's like, oh, there's Bill, you know, gosh, we eat my brains now. I think I'll just not look at him.
They changed, or they were able to voice their honest opinions? What do you think, really?
I think it's probably a combination of both. In a way, COVID was a microcosm because I think we were really drifting towards our own silos. It's so easy to find community of like-minded people now. You think about when we're kids, go to school and you talk about a TV show and there were 3 channels. We'd say, oh, did you watch Mork and Mindy? Oh, yeah. And so, but now there's such a diversity of things that what people can be into. And that's great. But the flip side of that is you can believe really stupid things and awful things, and you will find a community for yourself there.
And people to back you up.
Yeah, there will be a community if you want to believe the earth is flat. There's plenty of people that will be your friends. Shit, I don't want to lose them or my church. I don't want to lose these people in my life. So I'll just kind of go along with it. Before you know it, that's the only diet you're having and you would believe it. You know, it's just it's a classical brainwashing thing. I think there will have to be justice that comes to the United States. There has to be. We can't do anything until we have justice. We can't reestablish ourselves in the world. We can't rebuild things. We can't do anything until the people who perpetrated what they've done to our country are brought to trial. I mean, and so when that happens, there's going to be a lot of people who are followers on who will say, I had no idea I had no idea that this was going on. Nobody told me. They never told me on Fox News that this was going on. And I say, well, come on. You have to be curious enough to look outside of this one source.
I'm hoping I'm alive long enough to all that to play out.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm filled with despair, because it doesn't seem like there's any repercussions, that that's going to happen 20 years in the future.
Yeah.
That it'll all come out. So I'm just hoping I'm alive to see where we can go. See, he was terrible. Why didn't you believe me?
You have to give people an escape hatch too.
Yeah.
Because it is a cult and you have to give them a way to escape from the cult. That's really important. How you do that, I'm not really exactly sure.
I did read one article that was really interesting saying that, like a cult, you're just going to protect your leader, period. And so no matter what's thrown at you, your instinct, it was just pure instinct to protect the leader.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, I think. Like, they're not thinking for themselves.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing that probably maybe is eating you, I know eats me, is to see people, our friends and neighbors and relatives, who don't care that every time the person that they support opens his mouth, he lies. And that's documented. That's not an exaggeration. Every time he speaks, he lies. And so that's not important to you. And I always think that this is the problem that he and his cult members, his minions have with trans people or LGBT people in general, is that we tell the truth. And man, I tell you, coming out as trans did not, it made my life easier in some ways that I don't have this internal dialogue going all the time. Weighing the options and what's going on and how I can beat this thing. I can pray as a kid. I can pray this away. I know, this is the time. I got a girlfriend. I know this is the thing, and knowing that I can fix this. And eventually you just have to accept this truth that I know a lot of trans people celebrate this, but I have to be honest, it hasn't made my life easier, but it is something that is the truth. So I tell the truth that can be embarrassing, can be around some people that would see it as shameful. I tell the truth that makes me look suspect to some people. And so I tell the truth that doesn't help me. You have people who cannot tell the truth, even when it doesn't hurt them, that they cannot tell the truth, like Trump. And so I think they don't understand people who are honorable just for the sake of being honorable. They don't understand people who are truthful. And I think the LGBT folks who are out, that's a big truthfulness that they're like, what's the angle here? Why would you be doing this? And so I think that's why we're kind of enemies.
Why do you think there's so much hate? I'm Jewish. I never understood why anybody would dislike me for a religion I might or might not practice.
Right.
I mean, it's something in my head even.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to like being Jewish or African-American and maybe a little bit along the LGBT thing, but people have these narratives of like, who controls the world? Right. And so there's the vast Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah.
There's QAnon. There's all these things that, again, the flat earthers, all this stuff. And I think when you start seeing like these guys like Trump's age, or even like people my age, men my age, who have lived their lives, feel like maybe they were owed more out of their life than what they got. Maybe they treated women the way that they were supposed to be treating women, they thought, but that didn't get them anywhere, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're bitter and they turn on Fox News and they are radicalized. And it just eats their brain, eats their heart, eats their soul, eats them alive. And I think that those kind of folks would fall right into line of anti-Semitism or racism, all of that, certainly misogyny. And I think that's a big thing about being a trans woman. So many people are okay with trans men, but trans women, they do not like trans women because like, why would you want to join that team?
Oh,
right. And
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah. And it's like, well, number one, it's not like a wanting thing. It's just a truthful thing, so that's how it is. Coming out as trans, people don't understand too. They just think, like Trump said, you send you send your child to school, boy, and he comes home a girl in the afternoon. It's like, no, it's like, it is years of counseling and doctors and being vetted and all this. It is a bazillion hoops to jump through just so you can tell the truth about something that's not going to move you ahead socially in the world.
Right. I think maybe it's just that they are scared of what they don't know, period, because it has nothing to do with them. That's why I just don't understand.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I think everybody by now knows somebody who's gay or lesbian, but I think there's just a lot less trans people. And so I think that that's one that people don't really know about. My first day back to work, I came in. I always would run to work or walk to work, and I get there early. I take a shower and stuff. And so I poured myself a cup of coffee, and one of the offgoing firefighters said, "Oh, hey, Captain, how was your weekend?" And of course, he knew what happened over the weekend. That was a Friday, and he worked Saturday, and I was coming in on Sunday. It was Easter Sunday, and I go, "How was my weekend?" "Pretty good now that I'm a girl." and I was wearing makeup, which I hadn't worn before, which I think made people feel uncomfortable, which I thought, well, you know what? I kind of feel like I sort of need to own this. And if it makes you uncomfortable, well, acknowledge that. I get that. But I am different now than I was last week because I'm going to be honest. I get the ability to be honest with you.
Do you have any big dreams for yourself?
I think I really like my life right now. I like to be in a few more plays.
Mm-hmm.
I've written some plays that I've sent off. We'll see if they ever wind up seeing the light of day. I'm working on some writing stuff, see if that sees the light of day. For the most part, I always feel like my wife and I both were long distance runners. And so much of that was, you have to run really far, for ultra marathons and stuff just to get there. But, it's like joy running really far. I enjoy going out and doing that. It gives me a goal to do these things. So like when I go down and paint, I really like to paint. And then I'm really bad about trying to sell paintings. I guess I should want to sell them, but they just sort of stack up.
Yeah.
I love doing the work, but I think I need to be better about getting the work out there. I think that's it.
What's your medium and what are you painting?
I like to paint in oils the best, but I'll do acrylics, especially in the wintertime, because I find sometimes I get a lightheaded from that.
That's funny. Because you kind of keep the windows closed.
Yeah. And so I kind of switch over to acrylics when the weather starts getting bad. I like to paint like really vibrant wildlife scenes, really almost weirdly vibrant wildlife scenes. And then I was doing a lot of religious Sasquatch work where, like where you would take like a typical like picture of like, say, Jesus holding up a loaf and a wine goblet. But I would paint Sasquatch holding up a carp and a beer can.
That's funny.
And I do it on black velvet too. So, to make it really classy. And then like Suffer Unto Me, the children, but he's got like all these woodland creatures on his lap. And then other weird black velvet ones. I was doing Schmidt beer, which was a big beer when I was a kid, go buy that. It was cheap. And they had called it animal beer because animals on the outside. So I was doing a series of the different animals, interpretations of those. I was doing a series of ghost towns. I had this show and it was, I can't remember the name, but it was basically about queer art and it was queer Western art. So I had like a cross-dressing gunslinger coming through the door with a gun drawn, which was I like to take kind of like the typical style and then ape it, and then like a sheriff going after a desperado, but he's wearing big breasts, Yeah. So
are these online anywhere?
Yeah, they're online at maevegriffith.com. Also, I have another website, Spokaneorama.com. And that's kind of like the clearinghouse for all my oddball projects. Like I had a fake website called fishrespectin.com. And it was all about like a fake story about a guy who started a charity to connect inner city youth to the ocean. And it was like, if you got a youth who's disrespecting, get them fish respecting. And so I would sell. So I made like artwork and stories around that as vehicle. And then I do this thing every Friday I've been doing for like 10 years or something called Haiku Friday, where people send me haikus from all over the world, actually. And it kind of ebbs and flows as far as the amount of people. And every Friday I read their haikus. And also the website for that is haikufriday.com. And so I've got like all these little weird projects. And one that I'm doing right now too is I like to make big masks. So I made a big Sasquatch mask with a silver space suit on it, silver space squatch, I call them, and I'm making a little video around that, which also has marionettes that I've constructed. And then the one project that is kind of like, I'm really excited about that's going to be coming up, I think, is I made this giant beet head, like so it's like a big giant head, looks like a beet, like a little root coming down here. And then the eyes are all askew, like, a beet with real problems. And he's got a mouth and then a beret. And then out of the top of the beret, there's big leaves that come out of it. And then, so he's a beet-poet. So Nick the Beat. So my nephew has a musical group called the Green Warriors. And so I've taken some of their music and then laid down some spoken word on their music. And so I really want to go perform that as the beat costume. I got to figure out how to mic it and things like that. I kind of go in my studio. Go from a painting to like maybe the paper mache.
That's fun.
And I have my writing. And so I kind of like almost like stations, move across and do different stations on a good day when I can do all those things. Yeah.
Why is this Sasquatch run through your work?
Oh, part of it is when I worked at Station 3, there was a woman named Mary. And I knew Mary from I knew her when I lived on the north side, probably 1980, 82, somewhere in there. And she was this gal and she'd ride her bike and she was she was really pretty, but you look at her and you go, man, she's really angry. When I moved to Station 3, I kind of recognized her as being this woman. And she had a real thing for Sasquatch. She really loved Sasquatch. And she'd come over and she'd tell you, she'd say, hey, you got to watch out. Sasquatch is down the street there. And then one day we had a fire in her apartment. It turned out just to be a pot of food on the stove, put out, and she'd drawn all these pictures of herself with Sasquatch. Before that, our station, I really had it kind of aimed more towards, when I was a firefighter there, aimed more towards dolphins and unicorns, because we noticed there was always a preponderance of dolphins and unicorns in the houses we would go into.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so we had I set up a museum of dolphins and unicorn on the front desk, and people would come in and see it. A lot of kitschy artwork. I had to leave there when I promoted to lieutenant. And then while I was gone, people really took off with the Sasquatch thing with Mary. And in fact, supposedly, I've been told that they've got the money for it now. And I've been chosen by Spokane Arts to have one of the signal boxes. And it's a big signal box in front of Station 3. And the artwork on one side is Mary saying, watch out for dinosaurs, because she was also very concerned about dinosaurs. And then on the other side, it's Sasquatch with a hand saying, get in the zone, because we always called that neighborhood the zone.
Oh, I see.
Get in the zone. He's wearing a helmet. But I think that was part of it. I used to love listening to Art Bell. Guys at the station, we would listen to it at night. And he was AM coast to coast. And there would be people who would tell these stories about their encounter with Sasquatch. And I wouldn't say I don't believe in Sasquatch. I'm open to the idea. And we go to the Medellin Bigfoot Festival. The last 2 years we go there because that is really super cool. But I just think I like people telling stories, and people have great stories around it.
Well, I like Sasquatch because I have size 10 men feet, but I've had them since I was little. And so my sister used to call me Sasquatch.
Really?
Yeah. So,
that's funny.
so I feel an affinity. And anytime I see a little statue, I'm like, that's me.
Okay. Well, you should,
So,
I'm
going to check out your work.
Check out my work. Yeah. I've got one that's a black velvet painting of Sasquatch and DB Cooper together, standing together,
Is the black velvet like stretched?
Well, you can't get black velvet canvases.
Mm-hmm. So do you make them?
I was making them for a while, and then I started cheating. I started just getting canvas panels with adhesive black velvet for like drawer liners and putting on it. Yeah. And that works out really well. And then you can throw it in a frame really easy too. And so I've been really enjoying doing the black velvet stuff is super cool. I feel like it's got to come back. And when it does, I'm poised.
That's awesome.
That's the problem with the artwork is that there's some stuff that's people like that, it's something you would have up in your house, I suppose. But most of the stuff, unless you're weird like me, you wouldn't have it up in your house probably.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
There was lots of dolphins and unicorns.
People loved it. And the people had dolphins and unicorns in Pegasus. And I remember having a call with the guy, and he was big into unicorns and Pegasus, or Pegasi, I guess you'd say, plural. And then he had one that was like a flying unicorn. And I go, look, I got to ask you about this, okay? He goes, look, okay. He goes, I know. There's no such thing as a flying unicorn. I know. Okay.
Was it the flying part that it wasn't true?
Yeah, yes. Well, then I asked, so what if they had a unicorn and a Pegasus got in a fight? Oh, who would win? He had it pretty well thought out, Yeah. And so, that's what I really loved about the job too, is going into people's homes. If it was something serious, somebody having a heart attack, something big, you just go to work. But lots of times it was just people who were lonely and they just wanted to talk. You would just have like improv with people all the time. And it was a ton of fun. And I miss that a lot going into people's homes. I love your artwork. I love your pictures. And I just think that people need to know that the best way to combat these destroyers is to be a creator. And I also think that, we hopefully talked about truth today. And I think that when you make art, you make truth. And sometimes even fiction can be a great work of truth. Even a staged photo is a great work of truth. I think by creating, you tell the truth. And if you can do those things and keep a smile on your face, because they want you to be mad, they want you to be sad, they want you to be scared, don't give it to them. And that's what I tell my trans friends all the time. It's like, you can feel sad, you can cry, but don't let them see you do it. Just go do your thing. But in public, be fierce and work hard and be somebody that people, that people need you. I think that's important too.
Thanks for listening. New episodes drop every Thursday.